Why is it when it's my turn being adult, everything just goes to shit? Like, I'm paying $90 for a full tank of gas, a small meal costs like $20, insurance feels like a scam, even though it kinda is, and rent is like $5K a month for a studio the size of my bedroom. Probably even smaller. So, what started all this? Is it the president? Is it the boomers? Is it the greedy corporations that have been robbing us blind in broad daylight for decades? Well, yes, it actually is, but we're gonna go more in depth with all those today, so sit back, grab a snack, and enjoy. This is not a snack. First, we got the pandemic. When COVID hit in 2020, everything stopped. Like, you couldn't get basic stuff because nobody was making or moving anything. At the same time, the government sent out stimulus checks and people were spending that on things like these. But yeah, the government also boosted unemployment, gave out loans, basically dumped trillions of dollars into the economy just to keep people afloat. But here's the problem. If you added a ton of money into a system that has way less stuff in it, what do you think will happen to the prices? They go up, because when businesses notice people can afford to pay more, they'll obviously charge more. So prices went up and the government thought that in order to fix it, they'll just make taking out loans more expensive. That slowed things down though, just a little bit, because if the government is deliberately making people broke enough to stop spending, corporations are forced to lower their prices, right? But now your rent, your car payment, and your credit card are all more expensive too, because when interest rates go up, banks charge more to lend money. So they low-key pulled like a 2021 Nets, you know, they try to fix one problem and created three more, I guess. And when they're saying inflation is cooling down, they're not saying that the prices drop, you know, they're saying that the prices stop rising as fast as they did before. Like, your eggs went from $2 to $4 back then, and now they're at $4.10 instead of $4.50. That's what they're celebrating, you know? And you're still paying double what you used to. The prices that went up during the pandemic just became the new normal, you know? And next we got corporate greed.
How
Arasaka
Amazon operates as an evil mega corporation that infiltrates and corrupts all aspects of life.
Now, corporate greed is probably like the most infuriating part of all of this because it's the most deliberate. When the pandemic first hit, companies had a real reason to raise their prices. Their costs went up, supply chains were broken, and shipping was expensive, so it's reasonable for them to raise their prices, right? But then, when the supply chains fixed themselves, shipping got cheaper, and their costs came back down, it means that the companies can finally lower their prices back down in favor of the people and not keep them the same like the fat, greedy, demonic, child-touching incels they are, right? Wrong. Those prices stayed exactly where they were, not because the companies had to keep them there, but because they could. See, most of these industries that we depend on every day, grocery stores, insurance, housing, gas, pharmaceuticals, are all controlled by just a handful of these massive corporations, such as Amazon, United Health, BlackRock, and ExxonMobil. There's not really any real competition between those four, because when there's only like 3 or 4 companies running an entire industry, they don't really have to compete with each other for your money. They can all just charge the same high price, and your only option is to pay for it or go without it, right? And you really can't go without food, gas, insurance, and etc., right? And they know that, and that's why they're taking advantage of you. Moving on, we got Trump's tariffs. Now, I don't want to hear none of you Albert and Einstein Trump supporters here defending this, saying things like, well, other countries are paying for the tariffs, not us, or it'll create more jobs to Americans. Like, y'all are literally those Patrick reaction images. Like, those are probably the most 2 common arguments you'll hear from those bums. Now, let's start with other countries are paying for the tariff. Like, yeah, that doesn't sound like a bad idea and all, but that's not exactly how it works if you got functioning brain cells and decide to Google this for more than 30 seconds instead of believing Trump, right? Like, when the US puts a tariff on something imported from China, for example, China doesn't write a check to the US government. What actually happens is American companies that import those goods pay the tax at the border, and then those companies pass that cost directly to you at checkout. So you're basically paying the tax for them. You get what I mean? According to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, in 2025, Americans paid for nearly 90% of the tariffs, 94% from January to August, and still 86% by November. So foreign countries basically covered maybe 6 to 14 cents on every dollar. So it's actually hurting us more than it's helping us. And for the folks who claim it'll create more jobs for Americans, yes, it sounds logical, but it didn't happen at all. Now, since Liberation Day in April 2025, blue-collar job losses spreaded to nearly every single state. And it wasn't just factory workers. Automakers announced nearly 5,000 job cuts pointing directly to tariffs, and the retail sector started ramping up layoffs and store closures on top of that. Transportation and warehousing started cutting jobs too, as demand for freight dropped because both companies and regular people started spending less. Gee, who would have thought electing a businessman with 6 filed bankruptcies as our president would definitely help our economy. And don't get me started on that war with Iran, bro. On February 28, 2026, the US and their sugar daddy Israel launched a series of strikes against Iran targeting its nuclear program and military infrastructure, along with an elementary school resulting in the deaths of 120 school children. Actually guys, I made a mistake. It was actually a Iranian missile from the Islamic regime that hit the school, because America and Israel are the good guys and they would never harm children. Glory to the Jewish state of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay, there, I read it. Can you let my family go? Iran's supreme leader also got killed in the strikes, and Iran hit back with missiles targeting Israel and US military bases across the region. And then Iran did something that shook the entire global economy. They closed the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important trade routes on the whole planet for oil and gas. A gallon of regular gas hit an average of $4 nationally in March of 2026. Now, in California, prices hit $5.92 a gallon. San Francisco was already at $6, and diesel in California hit a record of $7.68 a gallon. And JP Morgan warned that if the strait stayed closed through mid-April, gas could hit an average of $5 a gallon nationwide. And the government's solution to all of this made it even worse in a different way. Now, in response to the skyrocketing gas prices, the EPA expanded the use of E15 fuel, which is gas blended with 15% ethanol instead of the standard 10%. Now, E15 burns faster than regular gas, so if you've been noticing gas draining faster than usual, that's why. Like, I'm literally just going to work at this point just to pay for my gas in order for me to go to work again. And the crazy thing is, gas doesn't even smell like gas anymore if you guys haven't noticed. So basically, gas prices spiked because of a war we started with Iran, which was completely unnecessary by the way, because we were scared that they might have nuclear weapons, which the chances of that are the same of me having a girlfriend. Also, have we not learned anything from the Iraq war and their WMDs? And then we got what I think is like the root to all of our financial problems today, and that is the boomers. Now, boomers are probably the most entitled generation we have ever seen. Back then, boomers could buy a 2-story, 3-bed, 2-bath house with a garage and a pool for like 7 cashews and a high five. And nowadays, a house like that would be worth at least 2.1 mil, because over time, more people needed houses and less were being built, and you know, prices kept climbing. And they would buy that on a McDonald's salary too, and it was pretty easy for them to get a job back then. Like back then, you could walk into a place, ask to speak to a manager, shake a hand, and walk out with a job that same day. No resume, no references, and no 3-round freaking interview process. Nowadays, you need a degree, 2 years of experience for an entry-level job, which makes no sense at all, a portfolio, a LinkedIn, and a cover letter explaining why you're passionate about flipping burgers just to get a rejection email from an AI bot 2 weeks later. Now, obviously, I'm not saying every boomer is evil, but the generation as a whole built wealth in a system that was designed perfectly for them, and they left nothing behind for the generations that came after. And they'll really have the nerve to tell you that your generation is lazy and all they do is complain. Meanwhile, back in their day, they had to work hard, go to college, get a degree, thug it out, and save up in order to be where they are today. But what they aren't telling you is that back then, the average minimum wage was $3.35 an hour, and the average cost of rent was $243 a month. Nowadays, the average minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, and the average cost of rent is $2,000 a month. And college was easily accessible for them too. Back then, a full year of public college tuition was $243. Now, today, the average public university charges $10,340 a year just for in-state tuition. That's a 4,000% increase. And as more student loan money became available, universities had zero incentive to lower costs because students had a way to pay no matter how high the price went. Now, over 43 million Americans are carrying student loan debt, and the total has crossed $1.6 trillion. So their minimum wage adjusted for inflation was worth more than ours today, and rent has gone up over 700%, and a degree for them was the price of 2 pairs of J's today. But yeah, you know, we just need to work harder and stop spending money on matcha and avocado toast. Like, we're literally working just so we can afford to go to work. But yeah, guys, if you made it this far into my little economic rant, I just want to say thanks for watching. You know, don't forget to like, comment, share this video to your friends who wants to learn more about the economy, I guess. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Also, don't forget, that's a lot of don't forgets. Don't forget to follow my Instagram, my TikTok. I post on those as well. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, be good people. Peace.
Subscribe to my Chiga who is John 206.
To my Chiga who is John 206.
See you in the next video.
See you in the next video. Mahoo.